Or another not here with us today, and this is important stuff that we're going to start. We get a couple minutes for a couple of the people. We're going to start talking about this brain. When we get this started, yes, the frontal lobe's connected to the parietal lobe and all that kind of a thing, and we're going to look at that. We're going to talk about that. You are going to have a familiarity with that. I would tend to expect that this probably won't be the very first time you've heard some of this stuff, which is fine. Redundancy is a value in learning, knowing stuff anyway. But when we start to talk about this brain, hey, right? When we start to talk about this brain, yes, we are going to look at, and it is going to be important. We're going to understand. We're going to know. The frontal lobe's connected to the parietal lobe and all that other stuff. Don't sit there and start to try and write that down. All this.
No, but I want to come up with a song.
Pardon me?
I want to come up with a song.
And we are going to do that part of it, you guys. And we're going to look at all these parts and pieces. We're going to rip this brain open in various ways and look inside the brain. We're going to look at the inner brain, the brainstem, the mesolimbic system, the medial forebrain bundle. We're going to look at the limbic system. We're going to look at all these parts and pieces. We're going to get down here, and don't forget, you guys, 95% of all 95% of all human psychology lives right here in the first place and all that kind of stuff. We're going to get into that and all those pieces and parts of the brain. But before we start that, in the beginning, today, and for probably the next couple or so few sessions, this is going to feel a little bit, it's going to feel more like behavioral philosophy than psychology or physiology class. Gang, we have to realize some things, understand a few things, what I call basic propositions about this human brain. And that, if we want to truly understand, especially the complexities of modern human behavior, and then the anomalies of, and how complex that is, the anomalies of modern human behavior. If we want to understand, what was that $20,000 question? How do we understand how and why? How do we understand why? How do we get this? The conundrum and substance abuse. How do we understand when basically normal? How did they remember that first day of class? Hi, I'm Dan. You can't help anybody you're mad at. Oh, by the way, the $20,000 question. Remember that? And how do we understand when basically normal, not stupid, not crazy, not immoral people end up doing so many abnormal, stupid, crazy, immoral things in the sake of a relationship with yeast pea or some other pile of powders? How do you get that? No wonder it's so hard to understand this. No wonder it's so easy to get so damn mad at. What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck are you thinking? No wonder it's so quick and easy to attribute, blame, explanation. Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with you. You're an asshole. You don't give a damn. You this and that. You see what I'm saying? How do you understand? How do you understand when basically normal, not stupid, not crazy, not immoral people end up doing so many abnormal, stupid, crazy, immoral things and all this other stuff? How do we understand? Basically, volitional self-destructive behavior. What do I mean by volitional self-destructive? What do I mean by that? Choice. This person is not like consumed by some psychotic thing where they really do believe Hitler's sitting on their shoulder or something like that. It's not that they are being coerced into this by other agents or influenced by outer space aliens. No, this is a choice. They seem to be making this choice. Volitional self-destructive behavior. And from the very start, we're behind a couple of big 8 balls with that. How do I understand that? And that is, again, gang, that's one of the reasons why we can't, it's so easy to get so damn mad at that person, because this is so stupid. It's so, what is wrong with you? We have to truly understand. My friends that I just talked about, and again, people relate, I know who you're talking about. Well, no, there's lots of them out there. You don't know who I'm talking about, but you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yes.
That kind of a thing. And some of that kind of stuff. He himself, his explanation was he was a big dumb, you know, he's got a disease and all this other, and everything else. And bottom line, if you want to quit, you'll quit. And since you're not quitting, that means you don't want to quit. You know why you don't want to quit? Because you're a fucking dumbass. You don't give a fuck about anybody. You see what I'm saying? You're a weak-willed chicken shit son of a bitch. And all this other stuff. You're relating to what I'm saying, aren't you? You see what I'm saying with this stuff? And gang, counselors still sometimes to this day think that's good stuff to say to their... And even counselors who hopefully have emerged beyond that level of stupid, they still don't understand. It's a disease. That, you know, this is a disease thing. It's nice. It's cute. It's convenient. And I guess anything that interrupts the true wellness, physiological integrity of a system could be called a disease. Sometimes people, you know, when confronted with that, they, well, what do you mean it's a disease? Where's the germ? Well, number one, they kept, well, we're going to find that gene one of these days. And we have been looking for a very long time and spent enormous resources that could have been better used to stuff, looking for that, again, that proverbial doping gene, alcoholic gene, you're a real asshole gene. We're not going to find it. It's going to be so much more complex than that. I've seen people, when they're finally confronted with this disease thing, what do you mean a disease? And then, well, what I really mean is this. There's a dis-ease in their life right now. There's a lack of ease in their life. So they have disease. You see what I'm saying with some of this nutty shit?
So do I have a disease because I'm a smoker too? Because smoking has the same effect on my brain as drugs do.
Exactly. Anything. An addiction is a disease. And well, that was nice. Okay, well, what do you do about it then? Well, you just don't do it no more. Well, that's like, you're going to want, I'm sorry, patient, you have cancer. What do I do about it, doctor? Just don't do that no more. You see what I'm saying? Come on, knock it off. This is so much more complicated than that. I mean, just seeking to understand the exhilaratingly exciting just realm of normal human behavior it's exciting to understand it. But to understand volitional self-destructive behavior, we're going to have to understand. And those of you who have had me for Psych 110, you remember when I started Unit 2. And what did I say? Yes, once again, we're going to look at, the frontal lobe's connected to the parietal lobe and all that other stuff. And we're going to look at the functional anatomy and the different parts of the brain. We're going to, in this discussion, that's going to carry on for quite a while, we're going to look at we're going to arbitrarily divide this into 3 sections, 3 ages, 3 functional components. The old brain, that often known as the reptilian brain, that caudal brain, that part of the brain that has been there in our heads for most of, at least mammalian, and even pre that, reptilian, and probably before we even crawled out of the water, life of those critters that were there. Don't forget, lectern, not a pulpit. Those critters that were there long before we were even interested or knew about what's going to become one of these days, sapien, and all that. This part of the brain that's been there. This part of the brain, to this very day, I propose to you, 95% of all human psychology lives right there. And we're going to look at all that stuff, but guys, as I say in that Psych 110, if we truly want to understand what that brain is, I mean, the frontal lobe's connected to the parietal lobe and all that kind of stuff. That's basically physio stuff. That's basically biology class stuff. And that's cool. We're going to look at that. We are. And I'm sure, I mean, can I assume that most people have had at least some involvement with this kind of information at some point in some class, someplace, at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had me also for 110, didn't you? No, you did not. We first met in 250, that's right. But everybody's had a little bit of this someplace, and we are going to look at that. But that's the stuff of psychology, biology, physiology, and stuff like that. We are going to do it, but we also need to take a step. This is not biology class. This is, it's DACT class. What is DACT? Applied Psychology. Basically, this is psychology class, you guys. And what we need to understand is, what is that brain about? How, by understanding what this brain is, what it is today, how it got there, where it came from, how it became what it is today, how it evolved into the thing it is today inside our head. We need to understand that kind of stuff as a way to basically understand human behavior in general, and then to take it that next step, the anomalies of the human experience. We humans, and addiction is just one example of this, you guys. Think of the personality disorders. Think of some of the other ways we humans get ourselves into messes. And we seem to be the propagators of our own problems, and we keep doing the same damn stupid stuff and everything else like that. So addiction is just one example of this, but if we truly want to understand volitional self-destructive behavior, that $20,000 question, if we truly want to, and don't forget, knowing, understanding, it's going to help us, it's going to lead to emotional tolerance. What was that very first thing that I said to you? Hey, probably that very first day of DAC class. Hey, everybody here, right room, DAC, everybody here, DAC class. Yes. Hi, I'm Dan. Oh, by the way, you can't help somebody you're so damn mad at. One of the best ways not to be so mad at our clients is to better understand, not excuse away, not justify, not make okay. That woman who rented her daughter to the dope guy. You guys remember that story? She was so desperate that day for her crack. She was too dope sick to do prostitution. She was too dope sick to go boost shit or do anything else. She's begging that guy, I got no money, please, 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 I gotta have. And that, remember, and then she looks over in her little apartment to the door off her little living room there, and that's where her 14-year-old daughter is sleeping. And what did she do? These are all true stories, you guys. I'm not making this up. She made a deal. You come over, bring me some crack, and go in there and have sex with my daughter. She rented her daughter. How do you explain? How do you not get mad at that? Do you see what? You know what? As I tell that story right now, I'll bet everybody's brain is doing a little bit of this, and I'm kind of mad at that. That fucking bit. You understand what I'm saying? That kind of a thing like that. How do you not get mad at that? And gang, we can't be mad at our clients. Now again, never forget, understanding does not mean that we're approving of, endorsing, agreeing with. It's not that it's okay. But we need to understand why this, at least to a pretty good hypothetical perspective, why is this happening to him? Why is this person doing? What's going on with this? We're going to refer to that woman again several times throughout this discussion. We need to understand this brain better. We need to understand what it is, where it came from, how it got there. We need, some basic propositions. We're going to start this discussion with some basic propositions. And one of the first propositions is the brain in our head. The brain in our head today is not a 2020 model brain, or given your relative age, a 1990s or whatever model brain. This brain, the brain in our head today, is the same brain that has been in the heads of we humans and our human predecessors. And again, we could go back at least to Pithecine level predecessors. If we want to, we could go all the way back to the primordial pool. Again, gang, this is where I often, don't forget, I did this last semester a couple of times, lecturing, not a pulpit. Science sometimes does run smack into the face of other personal belief systems, sometimes can even be offensive to other personal belief systems. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to tell you what's right. But gang, if we don't start to understand this brain a little bit better, I mean, this is the Carnegie Hall of psychology. This is the Carnegie Hall of addiction. We're not talking about toenail fungus medicine here. We're talking about the kinds of things that affect how this thing works. And when we seek to understand that brain, what's wrong? You know, what's wrong with that brain in your head? You should know better by now. And that kind of thing. How do you answer that? What's wrong with that? And usually, you guys, and what we're going to see, even in the extremes of addiction. Now, gang, everything we talk about, always a complete respect for the reality that this thing can get sick like any other organ in the body. And when I talk about this, I'm not talking about psychiatric stuff. I'm not talking about schizophrenia, true, real psychiatric or neurophysiological issues. What I'm talking about now isn't valid for the delusions and the hallucinations of schizophrenia or something like that. That is a different thing. But for the most part, even in the extremes of that human behavior and addiction, she rented her daughter to the dope guy. How the hell do you, what's wrong with that brain? And usually, you guys, the answer to that question is nothing. Do you remember when we talked about, once again, that story as we started classical conditioning? And if only one person would have told that guy, do you remember that? If only one person would have told that guy, hey, guess what, John, this is going to happen. It's called classical conditioning. It's how your brain works. This is going to happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. You don't want to get better. You're full of what it really, if you really want to know the truth, what it really means is your brain's working pretty good. That's what it really means. That's how it's supposed to do that. You see what I'm saying with this? Now, does that mean it was okay for that guy to go get drunk that night? No. But most of why that guy went and got drunk that night is because he didn't understand why that was happening. And nobody told him and forewarned him. Gang, that question. And this, not even just a thing, all these things with personality disorders. Do you remember we looked at them again with MESA? Borderline personality disorder, dependent personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, those things from last semester. Even that. The answer to that question, what the hell's wrong with that brain? The answer is usually nothing. That brain is just doing the job it believes it's supposed to be doing. Do you see what I'm saying with this? It's just that what we got to understand is that brain learned that job. We don't have a 1993 model brain in our head. The brain in our head is the same brain that has been in the head of our predecessors as it is now for at least and probably more than 2 million years. We people have not been here for 2 million years. Do you see what I'm saying with this stuff? This brain that learned about this world and learned about what its job is a very long time ago in a world very different from the world we live in today. In a world, gang, where? And never forget this. And what part of that brain is learning this? Down here, that old reptilian. This is the fight or flight brain. This is the survival, basic bottom line survival. And how many people read that biology and behavior handout? And even the inklings to that, even in today's brain. If you block that, if you block the neural pathways to that upper brain, if you block even the neural pathways to the middle brain, and then present that brain threat, guess what? This brain is going to be busy doing what? Everything it needs to do its best to protect you from that threat. Do you see what I'm saying with that? That kind of a thing like that. This brain that learned its job in that world, very different from the world we live in today, a very hostile, demanding, unpredictable, competitive. And not only us humans competing with each other, but we competing with the other animals. And dangerous. Because not only do I need to find my food, not only do I need to compete with you for my food, and I don't give a shit about you, but I also got to watch out so I don't become a bologna sandwich to the hungry tigers of our world also. All that put together. That's where that brain learned about this world and what's the next best right thing to do. And to this very day, the brain never forgets. Now you're sitting there thinking, Kelts, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I forgot half the stuff in that psychology test. What do you mean the brain never forgets? When it comes to survival, what it needs to do for survival, that brain never forgets. You hear what I'm saying with that? That brain never forgets. Now, again, lectern, not a pulpit. Our capacity, our human capacity for classical conditioning gave us what? A survival and a reproductive edge. There could have been other animals, other people that were headed in the same direction as us. As a matter of fact, there were. They didn't have the capacity for classical conditioning. They're not here today. We are. Does that make sense? That ability to learn thoughtless, mindlessly, is that important of stuff back then.
Saves time.
You see what I'm saying with that? Our capacity for that is why we're here today. And all of the things that became about that brain, that helped that brain help us. And again, even before sapien sapien. I mean, we can go back way beyond even, again, Pithecine. Australopithecine, which is one of the steps to, again, what becomes the human animal. We can go back way beyond that even. That brain that started learning stuff about this world a long, right, all the way back to, once again, the primordial pool. And when it learned something that helped it survive, it never forgot it. What do I mean? That was the brain that passed on those tendencies to the next generation, who then also had adaptive, survival, reproductive benefit. The gang, think about Neanderthal. You ever thought, anybody? Neanderthal. You've all heard of Neanderthal, haven't you? And besides that, you all remember in the 1950s, it was the greatest thing in the world. A typical 1950s horror movie would be what? Well, they were doing atomic blasting. Most of those movies were anti-atomic bomb movies, by the way. They were political movies. They had a political agenda. But they were doing atomic blasting in the North Pole, and somehow or another, out of one of those broken down, blasted to pieces glaciers walks this Neanderthal guy, and somehow or another, he found himself on a high school campus in the middle of Ohio, and he's terrorizing all the half-naked teenagers. That big, mean, brute Neanderthal, oh my God, the Neanderthal, the mean guy, the big guys. And we did, I mean, it was so popular. The big, meanie Neanderthal guy. Where is he today? Guess what? It turns out the Neanderthal guys should have been making movies about sapiens coming to their high school and terrorizing their kids. We were the bullies. Why is there not Neanderthal here today? Why are we here, not them? Because we're the ones that kicked their ass and took their stuff. You see what I'm saying? That's why there's not Neanderthal here today.
They're mixed in.
Well, probably there are. As a matter of fact, there's probably some Neanderthal genetic material in every one of us. But the thing is, do you get the point I'm making with this? And what that brain learned back then in those good old days, it never, ever forgot. What do I mean by that? It had those reproductive rights.
I know somebody looks like a Neanderthal.
That's not what I'm looking. I got my buzz on because I am waiting for a call, but that's not. Guys, I want you to take a look at, for example, take a look on page 3 of the brain and behavior thing for a minute. Another interesting proposition as we're just laying some of this stuff out right now. Let's refer to that for a second. Right here at the very top. This is an interesting little thing to think about. Remember what I'm talking about right now. And again, why we do what we do. Why we love to hate these things. Think about this for a minute. Think about this. Most of the things that we love to hate about humans today, their personality, what they do, what they don't do, how they are, and everything else. Most of those things that we love to hate about people today are the very things that made it possible for us to be here today in the first place. Do you get what I'm saying with that? Most of these things. We loved it. Today you're a big asshole. Today you're a selfish son of a bitch. Today you're this, you're that. Most of that stuff, you guys, are the very things that made it possible. If we weren't doing those things back in those days, we wouldn't be here today to be mad at them. Do you see what I'm saying? That brain that learned those things back in that very hostile, competitive, unpredictable, dangerous place to be. And again, it's just this is just not an exhaustive list, just a, for example, list. Some things. Think about this for a minute. Quick, cheap, and easy. Think about this for a minute, you guys. That brain that learned a long time ago. And you've got this list. So. But think about it. That brain that learned a long time ago. Think about this for a minute. Back in those good old days. If you spend 2,700 calories to get a piece of food worth 1,300 calories and you go that way for very long, what are you going to end up? Dead. You're going to starve to death. That brain learned a long time ago. Cheap, quick, and easy is the way to go. Do it good. Today, what is it? You're lazy. You don't want to work for a living. You want a free ride. You see what I'm saying? Today, you don't want to work for anything. You want everything handed to you on a silver platter. Gang, that brain learned a long time ago. Quick, cheap, and easy is the way to go. And it never forgot that. Because that brain learned that a long time ago is why we're here bitching about it today. Does that make sense? That brain. And it never forgot that. It became a part of what that brain is.
I don't see lazy and free ride, like somebody who wants a free ride is quick, cheap, and easy. Like,
no, back in the old days, quick, cheap, and easy was the way to go.
I know, but today we call someone like that lazy. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
But I don't agree with that.
That today, when somebody is like that, they want everything quick, cheap, and easy. They don't want to work hard for it. They don't want to. Then we attribute that as a negative characteristic.
Okay.
That's what I mean by that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just like the get-rich-quick schemes of Ralph Cramton.
Whatever it may be.
Okay.
Yeah. Today, when that brain in your head today that learned this a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Today, when that brain does this stuff, we call it this.
But isn't the evolutionary process that made us
Yes.
like where we are now? So we don't have to be quick, cheap, and easy because we're not out in the bush surviving.
But that brain, that old brain doesn't know that.
Okay, right. I get that. Okay.
That old gang, this part of the brain, oh shoot. Well, here it is right here. This part of the brain right here. This part of the brain right here.
Oh, it's a nose.
It's a nose and an
What the
eye.
heck is he
Yeah.
doing?
He's doing
Doesn't
my
know the
version of
difference
Mr.
between-
Brain.
That's gonna be
Right.
another one of these basic propositions we're going to look at, you guys. This part of the brain, it doesn't know. Gang, another basic
Simpsons
proposition as we continue with this list here in a second. Another basic proposition is this. That brain doesn't know much, as exquisitely, wildly complex in all the things it's doing. This part, that brain doesn't know much. A really, really good example of that is another part of the brain. I'm taking great license with our brain. In that frontal lobe area that that reaches down into the limbic system. It's called the medial forebrain bundle, the mesolimbic system. What do we call it in modern terms? Popular culture? The pleasure center. That pleasure center. And gang, think about this for a minute. All this stuff. Again, this old brain, this brain that doesn't know, this brain that's just doing its best to help us. That pleasure center. That pleasure center in that brain today has a very, very, very big problem with public relations. What's that public relations problem that pleasure center in the brain has today? What is that problem it's got? That public relations issue. This is the part of the brain that turns us all into a bunch of alcoholics and drug addicts.
Selfish.
The pleasure center.
Slut. Yeah.
Oh,
That pleasure center. And gang, it's true. Every drug, and again, we're not talking about toenail fungus medicine here. All of the drugs of abuse, everything from alcohol all the way through heroin and everything and all this stuff in the middle and everything else, no matter what else they're doing, and we're going to see what else they're doing in this brain, in this section of our discussions. One thing they have, no matter what else they're doing and what other parts of the body they're affecting or anything else, they all got one thing in common. They all light up that pleasure center like the White House Christmas tree. And that pleasure center feels good. And another thing, we talked about this last semester in learning theory, the law of effect. If it feels good, do it. If it don't feel good, don't do it no more. That brain loves to feel good. That brain that learned a long, long, long time ago, if it feels good, that means it's good for you, love it, and do lots of it. That brain that also learned, we're going to see a long, long time ago, if it feels bad, that means it's probably bad for you. Get the hell out of there. And learned that stuff a long time ago about that world that it was living in. And to this very day, and that pleasure center. And yeah, one of the things that all these drugs have in common is that no matter what else they do, they light that pleasure center up like the White House Christmas tree, and that feels good, and we love that, and that brain says, do some more. And here's the problem, you guys. What the hell? You got to ask yourself for a minute. What was, again, lectern, not a pulpit. Wherever this came from, whoever did this, whoever put it there, what were they thinking? Why did, again, whoever, whatever, lectern, not a pulpit. Why did they do that? Why did they put in our brain a part of that brain that's going to turn us all into a bunch of alcoholics and drug addicts 2 million years later?
well, that wasn't the purpose when it was created,
What's
I'm
the
sure.
purpose? What was this there for? This was the part of the brain. Back in those
Reproductive.
good old days.
Bow, chicka, bow.
Hostile, competitive, demanding, dangerous. It's not like we had health class or civics class. It's not like we had public service announcements or FDA warning signs. We had to do a whole bunch of stuff all the time on a regular basis. In order, hey, when we were hungry, we had to eat something. And that meant maybe sometimes find our food. That meant sometimes fight for our food. When we were thirsty, we had to drink water. When we were cold, we had to warm up. When we were too hot, we had to cool down. And hey, you better have sex once in a while if you want to propagate the species and all that stuff together. And this was the part of the brain way back, long before sapiens, long before walking on two. This is way back when we're still crawling around in 4F level survival. What is 4F level survival? Fight, flight, feed, and reproduce.
I'll say it.
This is there. And this is the part of the brain when you did something that you needed to do to survive. It made sure when you did that, it felt real good. Because that way, that's going to make you want to do it again. And guess what? You're not going to just need to find food today. You're going to have to do that same damn thing tomorrow. You see what I'm saying with that? Now, we're going to get back to this frontal, or this mesolimbic system, but right now, the point is this. The brain doesn't know the difference. This, that has been there so long. This, that helped us in that basic elementary way survive. Doesn't know the difference. That brain doesn't know the difference between eating when you're hungry, having sex, or doing cocaine. It doesn't know. Now, the intellectual brain in your head today, well, doing drugs is bad, well, and that kind of. This part of the brain doesn't know. All it knows is whatever you do for the last 2 million years, if it made you feel good, it's good for you, love it, do lots of it. Does that make sense? It doesn't know the difference between eating, having sex, or doing cocaine. And so when that brain has that cocaine come in there and light this thing up, it's not that it's a bad brain, it didn't know better brain. That old part of that evolving phylogenetic brain, it doesn't know the difference. And once again, do some more. Do it. It doesn't know what's wrong with that brain in your head. And again, gang, this is just one. We're going to see another thing. This is a highly integrated system. There's no one part of any part of that brain that is responsible all by itself for anything, including the pleasure center or anything else. But that part of that brain that's been there for a very, 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 very long before us, part of the brain in the heads of animals long before us, that learned a long time ago, if it feels good, love it, do lots of it. Doesn't know the difference between have sex, drink when you're thirsty, and cocaine, or any of those other drugs. All it knows is, you did that, it lit this up, that must be good, let's do some more. Let's do it. Now, gang, what does that have to do with understanding addiction today?
You need to know the chemical breakdowns and
It's a major part of why that person's doing it again. And why are they doing it again? Well, because they're a big fucking asshole that don't give a damn. No, it's because their brain is telling them to. It doesn't know that. All they know, you did that, and that felt real good. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. How does that go? Do it again, mommy. Do it again, mommy. Do it again, mommy. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Now, gang.
TV show Dinosaurs.
That's what's going on in the brain of the woman that rented her daughter to the dope guy. Does that mean it was okay to do that? No. But if we can understand this a little bit better, maybe we can understand maybe why she did that. At least a little bit more, so we can be a little bit less mad at and a little bit more. Do you see what I'm saying? All this stuff, you guys. That brain. And once it, again, learned a long time ago, if it feels good, it's good for you, love it, do lots of it. That brain that doesn't know the difference. We're going to see a lot of that brain's a very lazy brain. That brain that can't. Do you ever notice this one? That brain that can't do many things well at this. Would you shut up? I'm trying to talk to her right now. I can't talk to you both at the same time. We can't talk to two people at the same time, and then sometimes we wonder why that brain is messing up on very complex things. That brain that does love right now is all that matters to this old brain. This old brain. The only thing that matters to this whole brain today, all you want is immediate gratification. You don't think about tomorrow. You don't stay for a rainy day. You don't this, you don't that. That old brain, you're damn right. All that matters to that old brain is what? Right now. If I don't deal with right now. And oh, by the way, guess what's going on right now? I'm about to become a bologna sandwich for a hungry tiger. Whatever I do right now is all that matters, no matter what it costs me. It doesn't matter. Because if I don't do this right now, none of that's going to matter anyway. I'm gone. Does that make sense? That's what that brain learned. Keep these little ideas in mind. Again, for these first few sessions, they're going to feel more like behavioral philosophy. Gang, quick, cheap, and easy. Protecting precious and rare resources. And oh, by the way, you know what? My genes are the genes that matter here. My genes and what becomes my progeny is what matters. I don't give a fuck about you. You see what I'm saying? Back in those good old days, you're hungry, I'm hungry, there's one piece of food left. We're both looking at, what do? Have a discussion? Call our sponsor, look it up to see what the rule is? No. We do have a discussion. At the end of that discussion, one's dead, one's having lunch. That's the way the world works. You see what I'm saying? With that. Protecting those precious and rare resources. You know what? Here's one. I often use this. I use this as a story in intro psych. As a way to illustrate some of this kind of stuff. Another thing that brain's going to do is, one of these days, it's going to tell me, hey, Kels, you're hungry. Hey, Kels, go find food. And again, okay, brain, I guess I'm going to go find food, and boys, I'm going to feel good. We talked about that. Remember when we talked about where do I dig the hole last semester at the very beginning? And remember when I figured out where to dig the hole that felt good? Pleasure center. When I got there the next morning, there was a big fat tasty wine in the hole. That felt real good. I ate that big fat tasty right. That felt even better. All that kind of stuff, you guys. All that kind of stuff working together. Lighting up that pleasure center. That felt good. And everything else. My brain, one day, it does a sound check. It says, hey, you're hungry, go find food. I'm going out, I'm looking for that food. Pardon me. Pardon me. That brain. I'm going out to find that food. And the problem is, and it's doing other stuff too. It's remembering where I looked the last time. It's remembering where I went. It's remembering where those tigers lived. It's remembering this and all. And I finally get there. Where my favorite nuts and berries. And I get there today, and I'll be son of a bitch. Does anybody know this? I'll be damned. There are no nuts and berries there. Go look in her cave. What do you need? She took them all. What do you need all those damn nuts and berries for? Why? Why did you have to take? You couldn't save a few for anybody else? First of all, her answer is, fuck you. I don't care about your gene pool. Second answer to that is, I took them all and I put them here because you never know when we're going to find more. Don't you realize 2/3 of them are going to go bad before you can eat them? That don't matter either, because at least I know I got them there, and that feels real, real good. And knowing I got all those nuts and berries down there right now is making me feel real safe and real secure. You see what I'm saying? And that feels real good. Now, of course, 2 million years from now, we're going to make a TV show about you, and it's going to be called Hoarders. That's where that comes from, you guys. That hoarding behavior. What is it? That brain that learned a long time ago. Keep it. Get as much as you can and keep it right there. And fuck you, too. You see what I'm saying with that? You see what I'm saying with that stuff? Keep, and it's, half it's going to go, 2/3, 3/4 of it's going to go bad. I don't care. At least I got it, and I feel safer with it. Do you see what I'm saying?
But does that mean there's something wrong in
No,
another
it
part
means
of the
that
brain?
no. That's what you had to do back then.
Yeah, but now.
The point is this, though. Yes, there's something wrong, but not with the brain. It's the way the brain is relating to modern life.
Okay.
The fact that brain learned a long time ago to save that shit in the first place, and that it's still doing that, is not wrong. That's not the brain wrong. That's the brain just doing what it learned.
Right.
Do you see what that's the important thing.
Social constructs evolve.
That brain is just doing what it learned a long time ago. That brain that never forgets, especially, hey, me having all that shit in my cave, first of all, I don't care about you anyway. I'm feeling real good, real secure, real unvulnerable. Mm-hmm. Every time I look at that mess in my cave, even the rotting shit, there's a part of my pleasure center lighting up saying, I got it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Top 1%.
That's all that mattered. That's all that mattered back then. Fight, flight, feed in.
Look.
Make babies. Do you see what I'm saying with this stuff, you guys? You see what I'm saying? Today, of course, you're what? A self-centered, selfish asshole. All these things that we love to hate about people today are the very things that made it possible for us to be here today in the first place. I'm not going to tell you where my stuff is. I'm not going to tell you how to find the food. I'm not going to this. I'm not going to that. I'm going to keep that pretty secret because you know what? I'm going to need some more of it.
Top 1%.
Today, you're dishonest, deceitful, selfish.
Conspiracies.
Maximize safety and avoid bad, dangerous. Yeah, I'm going to do everything I can to be safe. Hey gang, don't forget Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do you remember that? Yeah, at the very top is self-actualization. In the middle are all those interpersonal and needs like that. What's the bottom rung? Number one on that. You remember this from last semester? Boy, I keep sneaking last semester into this. What was number one?
Physical safety.
Well,
Safety.
actually, biological integrity. The body's working right to start with. Number two is physical safety, the safety needs. Number one, the body's working right in the first. If the body's not working right in the first place, nothing else matters. But number two was safety. okay, the body's working fine, but you still don't want to become a bologna sandwich for the tiger. Safety needs. And guys, this is where, that brain didn't give a shit what was on TV tonight, or who's going to win the ball game. This is where this brain of ours lived for most of its human history. Does that make sense? And it learned that stuff real good. And again, one of the best ways, what do we call it? Fight or flight. Fight or flight. Of that. And again, and when we think of fight or flight, we're going to tear that one apart too. When we think of fight or flight, we often think of what? That sudden burst of energy when the tiger is attacking, right? And that kind of a thing. Think about that for a minute. Which is safer? Fight or flight? Which one's safer? Fight or flight?
Flight.
Flight. I don't care how tough you think you are. I don't care how many asses you kicked in the past. All you got to do is accidentally slip on that rock you didn't see, fall down, and now you're done. The best thing to do is get the hell out of there. Escape. Avoidance. Get the hell out of there. Learn. Where is the bad stuff? Avoid it. Watch out for it. Today, of course, well, it is. You're escape avoidance, you're a coward. You see what I'm saying? Again, the very things that made it possible for us to be here today, we look at them from that negative perspective. These are the things that we start to what? Psychologize, abnormalize, disorderize. Do you see what I'm saying? Today, these things make you undesirable. You got a personality disorder, you got this, you got that, you do enough of this stuff enough, you end up with what? Legal problems and everything else. This is the stuff also. You think about it, all these things are basically the things that you're going to see in most drug addicts. Every day. They're doing this kind of stuff. Why? Because they're a big fucking no. Once again, remember, what was it? My counselor, I'm doing clinical supervision. What did she say? My clients act like cavemen. You ain't a shitting, they do. That's where their brain is. Just like in the good old days, every day for that person is an ongoing, unpredictable, very hostile, competitive struggle, dangerous struggle for survival. Does that make sense? Of course that's what it is. And of course when they're doing this kind of stuff today, we attribute these negative ways to look at that. We disorderize that person. Of course, these are the kinds of, who likes a coward? Who likes a selfish asshole? Quick to aggressive response to threats.
Rage head.
Quick to, gang! That hungry tiger is after me. That person with the big stick in their hand that's going to whack me in the head and steal my nuts and berries. What are we going to do? Let's talk about it? No. That brain perceives that threat, it kicks in fight or flight, let's kick ass as quick as possible. Does that make sense? Today, once again, what is that? We have an anger management disorder. You see what I'm saying with these kinds of things?
That's what people say.
Where did that come from? That brain that learned a long time ago. I'm not going to sit there and try and reason with that tiger. This guy's hungry and I got this food and he don't got that food. He's got a big stick. I'm not going to try and reason with him. We're not going to talk it out. We're not. Yeah, he does have a big stick there.
Go for his knees.
That's the first start.
No, that brain learned a long time ago. Kick in, fight or flight, kick ass, and let's get the hell out of here. Today, we've got an anger management disorder. You get the point I'm making with this stuff. You see what I'm saying? Most of the things that we love to hate about people today are the very things that made it possible for us to be here. What does that mean? Those things are there today because that brain learns them and that brain never forgets. That brain never forgot that stuff. And that brain that doesn't know the difference. Hey gang, right now, this. You realize if I had you all hooked up, your brains were going wild right now with some stuff?
Plus, if you riding past in the car with you.
You know why? I mean, think about it. You guys know by now, I'm a lunatic. Are you surprised I just flipped you off?
No.
then why is your brain doing this? Because that brain
Says, fuck you too.
doesn't know the difference between this and a real attacking tiger. Do you see what I'm saying? Your brain and your head, intellectual, sitting here today, brains, oh, that's just Dan. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised he didn't do that sooner.
You have, but it's okay.
But then why is your brain doing this? Because that part of the brain doesn't know the difference between that and a real tiger. That's why. Do you see what I'm saying? To this very day, that tiger fighter part of your brain is still there. And we've got to remember that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Do you see the point I'm making with this? Stay vigilant, constant attention to possible threat. Today what? Anxiety, ADHD, and all that other stuff. Gang, don't forget, we talked about this. One of the most important jobs of the frontal lobe. When we look at that frontal lobe, I take this down, and if I don't clean the board, somebody walk in here, they look at this and go, what the hell are those people doing there? Really?
Eye in the middle of that pyramid.
Yeah. When we think of the frontal lobe, don't forget something, you guys. While this frontal lobe, what is when we think of the frontal lobe today, what's the number one function thing we think of with the frontal lobe? Higher intellectual functioning. The thinking things that do make us above, different from the other animals. Reasoning, that cognitive stuff and things like that. Another very important job, we talked about this last semester with the frontal lobe, are the executive functions, our ability to string together this series of actions necessary for a goal. Again, that's why that schizophrenia patient, it's not that they want to smell funny, look funny, and offend people at Kroger. They just don't know how not to right now because their executive functions are compromised. But then what was that third? We talked about it a little bit. What was that third major job of the frontal lobe?
Stop sign.
Serving as that frontal lobe stop sign. This part of the... Goodbye, Maslow. Hello, tiger fight. This part of the brain that is still there, that is never forgot, that is still ready for every target that comes its way. Just as ready as it was thousands of years ago. The only problem is the world's changed. This is not an attacking tiger. As a matter of fact, if you think about this, why we get so upset, bent out of shape and everything else about this? All this is what? Electromagnetic wave energy until it hits your pupil and then sent to the back of your eye where it's transformed into neurological energy. And then it's shot back to your occipital lobe where basically back here, it's basically an backwards, upside down pile of little neurons firing. Means not a damn thing until it goes to the thinking part of the brain. And that's the part of the brain that says, look what that guy did. I can't believe it. Nobody does that. That's wrong. I'm pissed off. Do you see what I'm saying? Until then, that's nothing. And it can't, this can't hurt you. It's not like I can unscrew it and throw it at you.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't have the most credibility when it comes to whether or not you can remove pendants.
But do you get my point?
Yes.
And gang, the world changed. Most of the tigers that we're dealing with today aren't real tigers. They're tigers that happen as a result of what we did to this world and made it change. Including, how many people are going to get hurt today? How many people are going to get in trouble today? How many people are going to die today because of this?
Couple.
Somewhere in this world? A lot. What the hell are we thinking? Because that brain that doesn't know the difference between that and a real tiger. And if we have convinced that thinking part of the brain this is a tiger, well then guess what? Fight or flight kicks in. Let's go. One of the very important jobs of that new brain, and especially this frontal lobe area, is to every once in a while remind that old brain about the way the world is today. It is different, and this isn't the tiger. Don't worry about it. Does that make sense? My gang, every one of your brains, when I did that, it started to, your sympathetic energy went up. If it had went up high enough, you would have done something. You see what I'm saying? But at some point, your frontal lobe said, hey, calm down. It's just that lunatic Celts. he must be making an important point here. Let's listen for the important point. You see what I'm saying? What was that? Your frontal lobe stop sign. Calm down. Don't worry. It's not really a tiger. It's not really an attack. But what happens if that stop sign gets wobbly and more wobbly or even falls over? Then who comes in charge? Gang, that's what ADHD is. What did we say last month? It's not that little Johnny can't pay attention to the spelling words. Little Johnny's problem is what? His frontal lobe stop sign is wobbly, or maybe even down. Little Johnny! It's not that he can't pay attention to the spelling word. It's that little Johnny's brain can't not be trying to also pay attention to everything else. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the best way, ain't no tiger going to sneak up on me, is to be into and aware of everything. You see what I'm saying? Now, little Johnny's stop sign should say, "Don't worry, little Johnny, there's no tigers here. Pay attention to the spelling words. We'll go look at the tigers Sunday when we go to the zoo." But what if that stop sign's wobbly or down? What becomes in charge? That old brain. And that old brain knows what it needs to do, and that is watch out for tigers. You see what I'm saying? That's not a disease, that's just that brain doing its stuff. Except for, yeah, the problem is not down, it's up. It's the stop sign. What do we give kids? What do we give kids with ADHD? Speed! What the hell is that? For crying out loud. The kids bouncing off the walls, driving everybody crazy, we give the kids speed.
See, Dan, you
Why?
say that though, but like my son was diagnosed with ADHD, and we went a whole year without medication or anything to see if we could change behaviors.
Right.
We had to put him on medication. Now
I'm
he's
not
excelling
putting
in
it down.
school. And
Why do we put that kid on speed?
What kind?
Because that speed for that kid stimulates back up the frontal lobe stop sign.
Yeah, slow
I'm not putting that down.
yeah,
But
No,
doesn't have it.
for a kid who really has this. For a kid who really, no. For that kid, why do we give that kid speed? Because that speed for that kid really does stimulate back up that stop sign. So now it don't have to worry about the tigers and it can focus on the spelling words. No, that medicine is a miraculous event in the lives of the people who really need it. Now the point I made last semester was what? Ritalin does not solve variable racial reinforcement, and a lot of these kids, they're misbehaving, not
Right.
paying attention, not taking no for an answer, not because they got a disease, but because they're well-taught monsters.
right,
And that was that whole thing about little Johnny and the candy bar and stuff.
right.
And variable, but no, for the real thing, no, I'm not, no.
Yeah.
And why are we giving that kid speed? Because that's what's stimulating back up that frontal lobe stop
But
sign.
it's interesting because even when you watch his behavior, you can see the effects of the medication are positive and there are negative aspects. Sleeping problems now and
Certainly.
hungry at night. He doesn't want to eat. And
what
then
we're going to see in this
Interesting.
discussion, when we get to specific drugs and chemicals,
Mm-hmm.
there is no such thing as a smart drug.
right,
There's every medicine, every drug out there, whether it's against the law drug or medicinal, with the most popular medical or psychiatric meds, there's no such thing as a smart drug.
right,
And that drug doesn't know just go to the stop sign. It's going to up that ante. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with antidepressant meds. We're going to see all these. They all have side effects. Why? Because a drug is going to have an effect on every part of that brain or that body that has a receptor for that drug. Well, guess what? While it's upping that stop sign, it's also jacking up that wake cycle.
right,
It's just, it's jacking up what? It's jacking up that adrenaline system and everything else. So it does have side effects. But that is why we give those kids that speed. It stimulates back up that stop sign. Now little Johnny doesn't have to worry about the tigers anymore. Let's pay attention to the spelling words. That's what that's all about, you guys. Again, the point I'm making that with right now, and again, we're just going to look at this as we enjoying these discussions with this. Again, just all the different ways to understand what this brain is. And again, today it's anxiety disorder, ADHD. Back in the good old days, it was pay attention. You never know where the tigers are. You better watch out for everything. You see what I'm saying with that? Now, where did that stop sign come? How come we got there? We're going to talk about that. The phylogenetic history of this brain. Today I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff out. Any of those kinds of things like that. Hey, again, all of that ways that brain learned a long time ago what to do to survive. And if it helped me survive, my brain never forgot that. My great. If you realize every generation you go back, you multiply the number of genetic contributors to who you are today geometrically. You just go back to enough generations to as far back as maybe the early 19th century. Do you know the millions of people that had to, everybody mating just perfect in order for you to become who you were today? And all those brains, well, they had their predecessors, and they had their, and somewhere that brain learned these things. And that brain survived long enough to have babies, which meant it passed those things. Do you see what I'm saying with that? An example is our capacity for classical conditioning. There probably were other people headed our way. They did not have the capacity for classical conditioning. They're not here today. We are. Does that make sense, you guys? Again, lecture, not a pulpit. And please, no, when I said why do we give those things, I wasn't putting that down.
No, I don't think you are. I know that.
But we need to understand this brain from another perspective. Now, what I'm talking, we got a long story to go here. If you've got a lot of I wonders, what ifs, and stuff, and yeah, buts right now, fantastic. You should have. If I were there right now, I would too. We got a lot of this story. And so, like I said, to begin with, yeah, we are going to look at the frontal lobes connected to. We are going to look at that, the basic functional anatomy of the brain. We're also going to look at the basic functional anatomy of neurons and how neurons are behaving under the influence of chemicals, including drugs and stuff like that. But first we need to understand where this is, what it's all about, why it got that way, and how this manifests itself into the current modern human experience. If I want to truly understand why you're doing what you're doing today, I need to know where that brain picked that up and thought that was a good idea in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yep.
See you guys all on Tuesday.